In 1988, they rewrote the laws, mainly for the accountants in the room. What they said is, even if we don't know that this conversation happened, and even if I can't prove that I gave him money, because you can't find it, and I'm telling you, you won't find it, okay? But the fact of the matter is, if we don't know what the deal was, and you can't prove we had the conversation, but if the balance sheet and the income statement of that company doesn't show somewhere that funds were transferred, doesn't matter where, that even if I can't prove what we were talking about, but I can prove that the funds are not where they should be on the statement of the company, we can still go to jail together, okay? A lot of business is lost in the world. You can see that estimate by the Trade Department. That's our own Trade Department. They figure that 45 billion, this is with a B, dollars a year is lost because we will not do corrupt business. When I'm teaching at Lehigh, I mostly work with internationals. I very rarely have a room filled with Americans like you. My Global Village program that was just here this summer, I had 100 young professionals, and they came from 51 countries. So when I start talking to them about an American Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, they go, we're out of here. It's you guys, you're the Americans. You're crazy about your laws. Crazy about your laws. And then I show them this slide. Sure, if you work for a U.S. company anywhere in the world, this law is yours. So that means you. I don't care what passport you carry. If you work for a U.S. company, there you go. Now, most of the people I'm talking to don't work for a U.S. company, so they said, we're still out of here. That's your law. No, not really. Because if the company that you work for has their principal place of business here in the United States, you're under the same law. Or if your company has your company listed on our stock exchange, you're under the same law. Doesn't matter. Let's say none of that applies. Doesn't matter. If you cook the deal anywhere here in the United States, it's just like you're working for a U.S. company. And it doesn't matter what passport you carry. The law still applies to you. About 15 months ago, 200 policemen rolled into Frankfurt and Munich to the headquarters and the homes of the 20 biggest officers in the most successful company in Germany, Siemens. They fight for it with Daimler-Benz, but it is just as a small example. Last year, that German company sent $28 billion worth of stuff to the United States. That's billion. Medical products, generators, telecom equipment, $28 billion. Why? They took all the computers of the 20 top officers out of that. It was a sting operation set up by the German government and the American government under this law. So 20 of the top officers of this big German company lost their job because of a United States law. What had they been doing? They had been paying people off what they found, and then they stopped looking. They found $1.3 billion of illegal payments under the table in 13 countries. In 13 countries. And then they stopped looking. By the way, the fine was $1.6 billion. 800 million to the Germans, 800 million to the Americans. So this goes on every day. Let's read this from Timothy, 1 Timothy 6, 9 through 10. People who want to get rich fall into temptation, and trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin, destruction. For love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Love of money, okay? Not money itself. There's a book that's so well worn here, and my wife said be very careful about using it. I don't know if you've ever heard of Tony Pompolo.
Yeah.
Sure? Okay. Funny guy. You ever seen him?
Yeah.
He's a kick, right? Very controversial, okay? So in this book says that the 20 hot potatoes that Christians are afraid to touch. You got to read it, right? The 20 hot potatoes. Okay. So one of the chapters. Well, the original title of the chapter was "Can Rich People Get into Heaven?" But he changed the title. It actually reads, Can a Christian own a BMW? Can a Christian own... Okay, so now that's my question. Can a Christian own a BMW? Yes? We must have some in the room, right? Nobody's going to admit it here, right? We're driving Hyundais or something. Okay. But a Christian can own a BMW. Why? Why can a Christian own a BMW? Well, I think it was my last minute. Oh, no, wait. Why can a Christian own a BMW? Why not? Can a Christian... Okay, let me ask it. Can a Christian own a Lamborghini?
Yes.
Well, Tony would argue a little bit of that, okay? It's one thing for you to have a $50,000 BMW and donate 10% or 20% to the church. It's a whole other thing to drive a vehicle that costs $250,000, okay? John Wesley, very early on in his life, said this: I want you to work as hard as you can. I want you to earn as much money as you can. Then, I want you to spend as little as you can to have a nice life. And I want you to give the rest of it away. Okay? Driving a Lamborghini, no one needs a $250,000 car. Okay? I have been to sheikhs' palaces in the Middle East. And I'm sure you guys have seen these things on the internet. The solid gold Mercedes. One of my salesmen had to go pick up a gold Rolls Royce in the UK on a business trip for one of the sheikhs in Dubai. A solid gold Rolls Royce. And when that car came back, and his other customer was in a little place called Brunei. And I've seen this. The Sultan of Brunei has his own racetrack. What's different about it is that there's like 50 garages around the racetrack. And on one day, 5 of the garages go up, and they're 5 of the most expensive Porsches in the world. And they race in the track. And they go out. Then the BMWs come out. Then the Mercedes, then the Lamborghinis come out. Then the Ferraris, right? Who needs 100 cars? Right? Who needs a gold car? Right? That's not what God intended. Not at all. He wants you to be successful. I want you to be successful. Yes, you can be rich as a Christian. You should be. If you're living God's life, and you're living His Word, and you're successful in what you do, I want you to be successful. I'm successful. I'm successful. I am. I have been. I'm not a multimillionaire, but I do very well. But God expects something of me, right? He expects me to give back. He expects me, when I'm in a class of people that are non-Christians, and I'm talking about Christian behavior, not corrupt behavior, that I stand up. What it was really expected me to do is when I had to actually do it. Okay? It's one thing for me now. I'm a professor. Okay? Professors, I talk, right? Rob says I'm an expert. You know what an expert is? Expert is somebody that doesn't know any more than you do, but I have a set of slides and I'm really organized. That's an expert. That's what I am. Okay? But now I talk about it. But for all those 25 years, I had to live it. And so did Don. We had to live it in the marketplace. So, what I wanted to show you is I just pulled 5 examples of companies, some of which you'll know. Under the foreign, look at this, Dow Chemical. They paid $200,000 recently in bribes. They got caught in India. Vetco, it's a big oil drilling. If you were in the oil business, you know that company. They paid $2.1 million worth of bribes in a place called Nigeria. That might not be a surprise to some of you in the room. The third company was actually working in China, Tianjin, and they were selling hospital equipment. $1.6 million of bribes, right? There's a very famous company there. Look at Monsanto. Now, they did something really interesting. They paid $700,000. What they were trying to drop there was called you know what an environmental, is everybody an architect here? An environmental impact statement, do you know what that is? What is that?
Basically where they just, if you want to build something,
right,
you go and you say, how will the environment be affected? What do we have to do to keep it from being affected?
Keep it from being affected. If we're taking so many trees out, we've got to replace them. If we're going to screw up the way the water rolls, we've got to make a water preservation plan, right? Well, apparently they didn't want to do that, right? They just decided that in Indonesia, it was too much work. So a little check of well, they certainly didn't give a check, right? The way this works, guys, it's not just money, okay? I'll tell you some of the stories. One way that you can pay people off without ever money transferring is I put money in a bank account because I'm a graduate of Harvard. I went to Harvard in '92. And I want to make sure that your kid goes to Harvard when he or she's ready. You won't even know about it for 10 or 15 years. But that's a little side deal we just cooked up, okay? And I want to make sure it happens, right? Your family wants to go to the Olympics. So instead of just taking you there, which is a normal business trip, any company would pay for that, I take the whole family and I set you up in a villa, you know, in China, and you get to spend a month in China with your whole family. That's illegal. I can take you to China, but I can't take your whole family, right? The trouble is, this is all gray. There's no rule that says I take you, but I can't take your family. You got to intuitively know what's right and what's wrong. Okay. Now this one is interesting because I just met an executive from GE last night. The reason the last one is interesting is GE bought this company recently called Envision. Okay, and they should have known it, but they didn't. Once they got the company and they started looking at the books, they found all these illegal payments being made all over the world. Now nobody caught it. They caught it, right? So now this is you. What do, right? You just paid hundreds of millions of dollars for this company, and you find out that they're cheating everywhere they're at, right? What do? Do you tell somebody? You not tell somebody. You tell them not to do it anymore, and maybe nobody will find out. Do you get rid of them? Do you cut the deal? Right? What GE did is they went to the SEC and they said, guys, come on in. I want you to look at the books here. This is the company we just bought. Big mistake. We still like the company, but look what they did. You want to find me? Find me. What do you think the government did? You think they fined them?
Probably.
No, they didn't. What did they say to them, though? Don't ever do it again. We'll be looking, right? So this is happening all over the world. How we doing on time? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay. I could take you guys through tens of stories of people that I know, friends of mine, people that work for me, people that were good people, and somewhere along the line, something happened, right? Because they got lured by a number of things. Lured because in some of these cases, they made no money of their own. They just wanted praise, praise and recognition. And so they did things in a way that wasn't too cool. Let me just take an example in Thailand. We had a very successful operation. My managing director was making hundreds of millions of dollars of deals, had a big home, servants, great guy. We had an agent there. I don't know if you guys know what an agent is, but an agent represents your business. They're not a salesman. They simply make connections. These are very dangerous. These are probably the way many companies get in trouble because you pay them to know the right people. You pay them to get you together with the right people. They don't sell anything. And our agent in Thailand was very successful. There was only one trouble. He liked to gamble. Now, here's a fact. In Thailand, even today, there is no Security and Exchange Commission. There's nobody looking at your trades. There's no control. In fact, probably some of you don't remember, but there was an Asian financial crisis that was almost as bad in the late 90s as what happened in 2008. You know where it started? It started in Thailand. Because every company on that stock exchange was overvalued. Because it was a gambling casino. If you knew what was going to happen with the company, somebody gave you the information, you bought the stock, and then you sold it. You bought it and sold based on the way it was going to move in the market. And it was going to move in the market the way the government and people made it move in the market. This guy was an expert in that because he was one of the biggest dudes in the whole country. He used to be the police chief of Bangkok. His family was one of the richest in the country. I'll tell you his name in a few minutes, and some of you that know what's going on in Asia today, you'll know his name. But anyway, my friend, the guy that worked for me, the managing director running Thailand, was a good guy. But I think the conversation went something like this one day in a bar. This guy that I'm telling you about said to him, Steve, listen, how much money do you make? Oh, I make $150,000, I have a big house, doing really well. He probably said, chump change, not a big deal. He said, the real money is made in the stock market. He said, but Steve said, well, I don't know, I'm here running a business. He said, don't worry, I'll tell you. Okay? I'll tell you when to buy, I'll tell you when to sell. And that's what began to happen. The reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to make a decision of whether he was wrong. Remember, there's no Security Exchange Commission. There is no insider trading law at all. What's insider trading? Simply.
Having inside information about.
Okay, you have inside information, what do you do with it?
Use it to buy and sell stuff.
Right, you use it to buy, you take advantage of it. And it's inside information because it means the rest of you guys don't know. Right? We know something that's going to happen that you'll never know in the market. And I'm not allowed to tell him, I'm not allowed to tell Robert what it is, but if I do tell him and he makes money off it, that's insider trading. And it happens every day in the Thai stock market. Okay? And it happened with my friend. And he started making tons of money. So much money he didn't know what to do with it. Okay? But what he did is he called another one of the guys that worked for me in Singapore, who's a really honest guy. And he said, Don, when are you going back to the States? I said, oh, I'm going back in 2 weeks. Come on back to Thailand. He said, I've got some beautiful silk. My wife wants to make a dress in North Carolina. You just come on by, I'll give you 2 suitcases. And Don is nice, but he's naive. And he stopped in Bangkok and picked up two suitcases, and he never looked inside. And he came to JFK, and that little red light went off they used to have there, and they said, you, over there. And he opened up the bags, and $3 million fell out on the floor. So, you know, just remember that little story the next time you go to the airport, and they say, did you pack your own bag? Right? Do you know what's in it? Right? Did anybody give you a gift? Right? Well, Don said no to all those questions, and there he was, you know, and okay, so we spent months making sure he didn't go to jail. And that started the investigation, and then we found all this money. Okay, now, so here's my question. Steve traded his own money in a place where there's no insider trading. His business partner, who I also pay, the agent, is the one giving him all this information. Okay? But there's no laws about insider trading. And he used his own money. So did he do anything wrong? Did he do anything wrong?
Ethically or legally?
Well, yeah. Well, ethically, legally, tell me what. What do you think? Did he do anything wrong legally? No. Not really, right? Not in Thailand. Right? He's a U.S. manager working in Thailand, but he didn't do anything wrong in Thailand. He used his own money. Did he do anything wrong ethically?
Yes.
Right? Tons of it, right? First thing, he set up his best friend, right? Who didn't know a thing about it and almost went to jail because of it, right? Right? But this guy that's giving him all the information is his business partner, our business partner, right? Helps us make the right decision. What's the relationship between him and his friend from this day forward? That guy. It's gone, right? It's no more a business relationship. Just because he knows what you know and I know what you know, it's over, right? So he lost his job, okay, as you can imagine. Let me just finish 5 minutes. We're going to do one more, and then let's read this from Zephaniah. Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to save them on the day of the Lord's wrath. It won't save them, right? I was walking down Ocean City on the boardwalk, and this kid came by with a t-shirt. And you guys probably have seen it before. It read something like, the one with the most toys who dies wins. Right? That's the opposite, right? The most toys at death wins. God doesn't care about those toys at all, right? Doesn't matter how many houses, doesn't matter how many cars, doesn't matter 5 plasma TVs. It just doesn't matter. I'm going to skip over this one because it was about a young man that worked, who was one of our most successful salespeople in New York. The long and short of the story is he fudged his expense statements in order to give gifts to people in the company. He didn't take any of the money himself. And he was at a high enough level that he thought, I don't care what the rules are. I want to give gold necklaces to the women in my organization that are the best saleswomen, and I don't care if I'm not allowed to do it, so he hid it on his expense statement. And of course, when it was found, what happened to him?
Fired.
He was fired, because he lied, right? Didn't matter, he didn't take any money for himself. If you lie once, you lie again. I wanted you just to look at this last chart. I'm going to finish with this. A good friend of mine is John Hanson. John Hanson is an FBI agent. Now, here's a little known fact that I had no idea. There are 10,000 FBI agents in the United States right now. 1,000 of them are accountants, forensic accountants, right? And John was one of them. He was one of the best accountants in his class at Stanford, right? And he said, I never thought he was going to give me a gun and a badge and I was going to be an FBI guy looking for crooks on their balance sheet, right? And he spent his career doing that. And he got into some really, really dicey situations because he was finding big, big money, okay? That was false. But I had John in my class one day and he went to the board and he said, every time someone did something wrong or cheated, these three things were always there. And he drew it as a triangle, and I thought, hey, that's cool, because it kind of puts it in perspective, right? Every time he found somebody doing unethical things in the business workplace, they all had an incentive. Something was going on in their life. Their marriage was breaking up, they were in a divorce that was costing them money, they had fallen off the other side, some kind of drug problem, some kind of drinking problem. Sometimes it wasn't even that. Sometimes they were so praised by the good results they got, and they loved that praise. That was the incentive to do wrong. But that's not enough. Okay? The second thing, and it's on the sheets that I gave you, is in all cases they had the opportunity to do it. So what did that mean? It meant that they had knowledge of something that was going on, the way things were shipped in the company, the way money was moved, what people were doing, where warehouses were kept, where they could get stuff out. They all had the knowledge of how to do it. In many cases, they had the authority. That meant that they were at a high enough level that people didn't ask them. So they had the knowledge, and they had the opportunity, and for some reason, they had the time. Most of the cases, for some reason, nobody was checking the store, right? They just had a lot of time on their hands, right? We had a vice president at Lehigh about 7, 8 years ago. It was a terrible story. He was supposed to be checking all the statistics of all the students coming in. And he was married to a very high person at the college. He had a vice president's title. And he wasn't doing his work at all. What he was doing was going on the internet to find girls under 12 years old to have a trieste with. And he got trapped at one that he set up with a mother and her 3 daughters. Right? Except that the FBI was waiting for them behind, right? And they put him in jail, and he's still in jail, right? He had all kinds, he would do this statistical stuff in 1 week, and the other 3 weeks, he'd surf the internet, right? And nobody knew. So, knowledge, authority, time. The last one, and this is where your Christian faith, helps us all. Because in all cases, they can rationalize their way out of it about why they were doing what they were doing. There was always a rationale. Some of them said, I'm not hurting anybody. It's no big deal. It's a big company. They're all crooks up there. Nobody knows. Not a big deal. People felt that they were unequal. There was some inequality going on, that they weren't treated fairly, that they didn't get the promotion that they should have, that nobody cared about their work. And so this is a way that I'm going to get back at them. And a lot of time it was actually to do with, again, how people see you in the marketplace. It was the tone set at the top by the supervisor or the boss, right? And it was their attitude that they were working against. So they all had a reason, an incentive, something was going on in their life. They all had the time, nobody was looking, and they all could rationalize why what they were doing was okay. Let's read this last quote. No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And I'll finish with that. In the Bible, the Lord's Word 600 times talks to us about us and money. 600 references in the Bible about us and money. It was a lot on the Lord's mind, right? You know the ones about the camel and the needle and all that, right? I want you to be successful. You should be successful. You're a Christian group of people, right? I want you to shine in the workplace. I want your success to shine in the workplace because you are Christian, because you act in a Christian way, because you treat people fairly. You don't take the shortcut. You don't do the wrong thing. And you're going to be challenged with it. All of you in business know what I'm talking about. It will happen to all of you. It may happen in small ways. Some of it may happen in big ways. But you will come to that dividing place in your life. Then you have a decision to make. You can say, he's watching. Not a big deal. Not going to hurt anybody. It's for the good of the company, not for me. And you just take one step. Right? And of course, once you take that step, there's nowhere back. Right? Because you have to take the next step and the next step. And so, business is a wonderful thing. It's a hard thing. And I want you to be successful, but I want you to do it in a Christian way. And I want you to always remember that people are watching you. Right? They're watching you in the smallest ways. Right? You know, to be a leader, you can be a great orator. And that's great. Right? And you can be charismatic. I mean, leaders are charismatic. Right? But the third C of that triangle is character. Doesn't matter how well you speak. Doesn't matter how charismatic you are. People know about your character. If your character isn't there, they will not follow you.